KhemAstroMath-Horary Astrology, Methodology and Philosophy, or should I say, how the KhemAstroMath-Horary methodology was developed. A few years ago, after ploughing through a large quantity of ancient astrological literature, I had had enough of remaining within my own comfort zone as a practicing astrologer, and I wanted to gain more practical knowledge in terms of the application of horary astrology. At the time, I felt that having a growing list of regular clients was all well and good. However, I also felt that this approach was gradually conditioning me into creating a psychological bubble, or a comfort cushion, if you will, whereby my astrological skills were not being thoroughly put to the test. For example, some clients would have sought out my services via word of mouth recommendation, and would therefore be reluctant to point out if part of my delineation was inaccurate from their perspective. This was usually due to the respect that they would already have for me as an astrologer. Therefore, I decided to regularly devote a portion of my time towards venturing out into the street and giving free sample horary readings to random members of the general public. At first, I was slightly nervous, but at the same time, I was extremely excited. Moreover, I was looking forward to being harshly criticized by members of the public for not being accurate in my delineation. Why, do you ask? Because by constantly being put to the test, I would be able to quickly iron out any flaws I may have had within my delineation of the horary chart in question. So, I created a banner displaying astrological readings available here. Free sample questions. I then proceeded to walk on the street with this sign strapped to my back, and I began providing astrological readings to the public via horary. Upon setting out, I made sure to keep a constant mental note of which astrological sign was rising upon the tropical ascendant from minute to minute at all times of the planetary day. Plus, I also kept a perpetual ongoing mental calculation and arithmetical log of the current tropical zodiacal place of Our Lady the Moon and her last aspectual separations, as well as her next planetary aspects. I also kept within my mental visualization state the current zodiacal places and positions of all of the planets, down to the sign, house, and degree of ecliptic longitude of each planet, as well as the current planetary hour. The reason why I did this is because I did not want to have to rely on astrological software or having to pull out my smartphone each time a new client came for me to read. I wanted to be able to have the chart within my mind visualized, so that as soon as somebody comes to me for a horary reading on the street, I will be able to instantly go into my memory banks and visualize the chart and then read them on the spot without needing any astrological software. So, when providing each sample reading when I was out on the streets, I found that 70 to 80% of the time, I was told by the person I was reading that I was giving an accurate account of what was happening in their life. In other words, they told me that my accuracy was extremely high, 80%, 90% of the time. However, sometimes I would be told that I was slightly inaccurate and other times completely off. Many times, however, I found that this was due to the misinterpretation of what horary actually is, and down to the fact that a large majority of the general public have no idea how to properly phrase a horary question. Therefore, they would ask what I would perceive as idiotic questions that do not need a horary chart in order to be answered. Or they would ask a purposely broad, vague, and or insincere question relating in a chart that can only, or shall I say resulting in a chart that can only be answered with an extremely vague response. However, despite this, and at other times, I would still end up providing an answer that was deemed to be truthfully inaccurate. by the questioner. Although this sort of criticism was exactly what I went looking for in the first place, it still haunted me. It drove me mad. And it also drove me even more to the point to being more determined to get to the bottom of it. I wanted to get to the bottom of why sometimes I would read a random client on the street without them giving me any prior information. And sometimes I would be extremely accurate, but then sometimes I would be completely off or slightly inaccurate. I was wondering, why is that the case? Even if they asked a very sincere question, sometimes the methodology that I was using would result in me giving a response to them that was slightly inaccurate. So you know what I would do? Each time afterwards, I did this for several days on end because I wanted to get to the bottom of how to apply horary methodology using the ancient techniques that I had read about and applied. I wanted to know if these techniques actually worked all of the time using a consistent approach while reading clients without them giving me any prior information. They would ask me questions such as my relationship, what's happening with it, tell me what's going on. And that's all the information they would give me. And then I would go into my mind, visualize the horary chart of the moment, know what sign was rising on the tropical ascendant, and then from there begin to delineate. And as I said, a lot of the time it was accurate, like 80%, 90%. But then at other times it was slightly inaccurate, and sometimes it would be slightly off. And I was thinking, why is this the case? Am I missing something? What's actually happening? The question was sincere, but why is this the case? What's happening? So every day after, I would be out in the street for a good couple of hours reading people, spending around 5 minutes to 10 minutes on each person. And I would routinely return to my headquarters and ponder upon what mistakes were made and how to rectify them in the future. After a lot of pacing up and down from corner to corner and a lot of rereading of the ancient horary texts and a lot of frustrational head scratching, I came to the sudden realization. It soon became apparent to me that the horary chart of the moment was not adequate enough when it came to delineating questions from multiple clients within a short space of time. Moreover, in my opinion, based upon practical experience, it is almost impossible to use the same, it's impossible, or shall I say almost impossible to use the same ascendant of the moment to answer the same or similar questions from 2 or more clients in a row and deduce an accurate response. Why? Because each client is a completely different individual with a completely unique and individual magnetic field of their own. What do I mean by this? Give you an example. I remember at times I would venture out onto the street with the strap of the sign showing and displaying free astrological readings, free sample questions. I would walk out onto the street and I would go up to random people and ask them if they would like a free astrological reading. Now, if at the time that I was offering the service, a sign of long ascension was rising, for example, Libra or Virgo. For example, Libra, at this geographic latitude where I currently reside in London, UK, 52 North latitude, geographically, the sign Libra takes 171 minutes to rise. That is 2 hours and 51 minutes to rise on the tropical ascendant. Now, what I found is that if I ventured out and I started reading random members of the general public at the time when Libra was just beginning to rise, then each person that would come to me within that period of time that Libra was rising, i.e. 2 hours and 51 minutes, they would all have the same ascendant for the chart that is generated if they ask me a question. And therefore, I was spending approximately 5 to 10 minutes on each person. So within 2 hours and 51 minutes, I was reading approximately 15 clients. Now, what I found is that all 15 of those clients would possess the same Libra ascendant. And I realized that the chart of the moment, yes, the horary chart of the moment is exactly that. It is the horary chart of the moment. It is not the horary chart for the person who is asking the question. Therefore, the horary chart of the moment would only be relevant for the first 1 to 2 to 3 clients that would come to me for a reading when I was in the street carrying out this type of field work. The 4th, 5th, 6th, and so on, moving on all the way through those 2 hours and 51 minutes that Libra was rising, their life would not reflect the chart of the moment with the Libra rising. Therefore, that was the reason why the question that they were asking was not answered accurately within my delineation. Why? Because the ascendant does not change fast enough to become individualized for each person asking the question if it is a sign of long ascension. So, due to the fact that each client is completely different and is a different individual with a completely unique and individual magnetic field of their own, there had to be something else that I needed to do in order to individualize the ascendant for each and every person during that 2 hours and 51 minutes time period. So, based upon this realization, I therefore came to the following conclusion. The horary chart of the moment must be mentally manipulated and thus magnetically imprinted by both the astrologer and the client in order for it to become unique to the questioner. Then, and only then, will it adequately and efficiently reflect the situational circumstance of the client in question. I also concluded that this approach would also help to filter through the astrological smokescreen created by those who choose to ask questions that are purposely vague or deliberately designed to obscure what their true query actually is. Over time, I found a way to extract the relevant individual energetic signature from the questioner in order to generate an adequate horary chart that directly relates to them upon a personal level, regardless of the question. Hence, this practice evolved into a creation of generally being able to mentally generate horary charts using what many astrologers would deem as unconventional means. I began to mentally generate horary charts based upon 3 horary numbers that were submitted by the person asking the question. This later evolved into creating charts based upon the number of syllables prevalent within the questioner's speech pattern. And it also evolved further into looking at the colors of the clothes that they were wearing, i.e. the colors of their clothing or their attire, and then creating a horary chart based upon those colors. Further, it evolved into studying the posturing, the individual bodily posturing of each person who came for a astrological horary reading, and creating a horary chart based upon that. Even individual sounds that a person would make as they adjust themselves when they stand in front of me or decide to sit down in a chair was being utilized to create a horary chart. Upon adopting this approach, I found that the accuracy in delineation increased almost immediately. So much so that I was able to take this approach to a couple of online companies and work as a freelance reader, answering multiple horary questions with a high degree of accuracy at high speed. In conclusion, KhemAstroMath-Horary methodology and philosophy has at its foundation the many traditional techniques that can quickly and easily be found in a large majority of available literature written upon ancient medieval astrology. However, all astronomical mathematicians of KhemAstroMath approach the practice of horary astrology in a manner that would be deemed extremely unorthodox and unconventional by a large majority of practicing astrologers. Hence, you would be very hard pressed to find any written information on a large majority of our methods in any astrological literature currently available on the market. Regardless of this fact, the technical methods we have chosen to adopt in our astrological practice have been extensively examined and thoroughly tested in terms of consistency, efficiency, and proficiency, as they were developed over many years of experimentation, extensive fieldwork, and practical experience. This is ThaBadbrey Herbalist Asar, ancient astrologer and astronomical mathematician of
the Khemety of Ancient Astronomical Mathematics, courtesy of ThaBadbrey Herbal.co.uk. Hakamanajum. Dendra.